Hello, Angry Spork here. Figured I'd do a spontaneous vlog about a few subjects, a couple that I was thinking about vlogging a few weeks ago, but just never got around to it. First off, Batman 50. If you somehow have managed to miss all the hubbub about the New York Times spoiling this issue and do not want to get spoiled, you can just watch this video later, because I'm about to spoil it now. So, after all the hype about Batman and Catwoman getting married, and honestly, I thought it could go either way, because as much as I know Dan Didio hates the idea of characters being married, because they can't be happy and they need to be miserable to be heroes, and he's an idiot, I hear people saying that, oh, Rebirth is so good, it's so good, it's an apology for post-Flashpoint. I believe that that's a possibility to an extent, because I'm not reading Wonder Woman or Green Lantern or Aquaman or Justice League, and maybe those are doing just fine, but, well, if you've seen any of my reviews, you know that there's one character in particular, and a few others related, that are not fixed yet, so Rebirth hasn't fixed everything. But later for that. The New York Times spoiled this, but it turns out Catwoman ends the marriage. She just calls it off. However, they left out certain details, which is why a lot of people who only read the article and aren't listening to Tom King on his Twitter are ticked off. DC spent so many weeks, so many months hyping up the impending marriage, and they announced this so unceremoniously, as in a news article, that DC, they gave the New York Times the issue so they could do the article, and they went ahead and spoiled it. I'm not terribly familiar with Tom King's work. I've read very little of it to really gain an idea of, is he a good writer? Is he a bad writer? Is he just someone that's not my style? There's a line where Selina calls Bruce a hurt child that can't be happy, because if Batman's happy, then he wouldn't be Batman anymore, and people would die, so that's why she calls it off. And that seems... I don't know how much freedom Tom King is given for this particular run of his, but that feels pulled straight from the butt cheeks of Dan Didio. And if you don't believe me, here's a little graphic criticizing something he said. It was something he said after DC, at the last second, decided Batwoman wasn't going to get married. And this is not just Dan Didio. This is a mentality that's been at Marvel as well. That's why Spider-Man's marriage was annulled by the devil. Because some people in the industry don't think married heroes can work, because it's too difficult, and even some readers seem to have adopted this mentality, even though, no, it's not the marriage that makes it difficult, it's the writer that makes it difficult. Maybe some writers just can't write married characters. That's fine. Other writers can. Sue Storm and Reed Richards have been married forever. Superman's been married, barring the New 52 mistake, Superman's been married for, over 20 years. So, that's not the problem. But I digress. The thing of it is, there's more to it than the spoiler from the New York Times. I don't want to say what it is exactly. From what I've read online in a source or two, that Catwoman was influenced to call off the wedding by someone she trusted, and that someone she trusted was ordered to do it by someone else, someone from earlier in King's run. And there's this bigger picture going on. Tom King has said so on his Twitter, that there's more to it. It connects to other things in the story he's got going. So if you like Tom King's run on Batman, don't let this spoiler dissuade you. If you like it that much, I don't really care myself, because I was never really invested in the whole marriage thing. As far as Batman and Catwoman were concerned, DC just made me not care anymore. I mean, since 2011, they've been screwing up, and they started screwing up slightly less in 2016, but they still haven't fixed Cassie. They still continue a lot of stupidity from the New 52, and even, Doomsday Clock, which is supposed to echo the Watchmen while trying to finalize the changes in Rebirth or some nonsense. It's being delayed and pushed back and all this, and they've really screwed themselves over, and they want to blame everyone but themselves. That's why I don't care. They keep screwing up, and unapologetically so, because either the people higher up just don't care to admit their mistakes, or the writers are well-intentioned and they love these characters. That means everything they do is wonderful and awesome, and no, it's not. I'm sorry. But yeah, DC, they set it up so the New York Times would spoil this, and they seem to have screwed over the writer, which, yeah, that's... they've done that before. Dan Didio, he's just so terrible at his job. Jim Lee can't be that much better. I know Jeff Johns recently stepped down, but I don't think he should have been given any authority either. I think he was appointed out of popularity with his writing, but no, they seriously need to clean house up there. Speaking of cleaning things up, another topic I wanted to talk about was Supergirl Season 3. I know it's a little late since the finale was a couple of weeks ago, but... oh, poor Kara. I really liked the first season. It wasn't perfect, but... it's like the show just really tanked after the first 2 episodes of Season 2, where we got a really good Superman from, Tyler Hoechlin, and, but after that, it just seemed like they forgot how story structure works. It's like the writers want to get out a certain message that prioritizes their personal viewpoints. I think they've overly simplified things in their favor, so they don't have to work so hard to get the message across. They don't want the audience to actually think. They just want the audience to know, this is what we think, this is what we're about, so go us. And it's done at the expense of story structure, characterization, making any bloody sense. It is just nuts. And don't get me wrong, I think the cast is fine. I think that they have good intentions. They can't keep their stuff straight anymore. We're the DEO. We're a secret Men in Black type organization that controls and monitors alien activity on the planet and so forth. And it's like, everyone's allowed in. Everyone! Freaking James Olsen. It's like, he's a photographer, but he can just waltz on in. Lena Luthor, she's a maybe antagonist. She can walk on in when it's convenient. Freaking single mother and her child, okay. Consistency. Look it up. This last season with Reign is like, they wanted a season-long arc, but they didn't have enough story to make you care that it started with... generally it started with Reign and then ended with Reign. Like, they just had to conveniently have Reign slumber or rest or whatever, so they could focus on another Toyman episode or some other enemy episode. And it just it made it such a drag to watch. It's like, and there were some things in each episode that were fairly entertaining, but it's like they always found some way to drag it down, whether it was the ham-fisted and quite frankly poorly represented attempts for female empowerment. She and a couple of other female villainesses went to the space station to gather more info on Reign, and what was it? I think it was Livewire It's like there was this gas that was only deadly to men. It's their own fault. It's like, what? How is it their own fault? That doesn't make any sense. That's your idea of girl power? That's bad writing is what that is. And of course, they tried to tackle other issues that are worth, discussion in the real world, but they do it so poorly, like guns, trying to do the whole race relations issue, which, quite frankly, Black Lightning tackled so much better in its first season. But no, it's like they have, like, what was it, 4 or 5 cops run up to James as he was Guardian, and because his helmet was shot off, oh, he's a black guy, we better hold our guns on him. Oh, look, some suspects are running away. We'll let them go, because they're white. Sure, you'd think at least one of these cops would have the sense to, I don't know, stop those people from running so you could at least get a statement in the event the cops did suspect that they were at least innocent and victims or something, but no, they didn't do that at all. Because it's bad writing, you see. They may be well-intentioned. These are discussions that are worth bringing up, but they're not doing it well. They're focusing more on how they want to get across a message, how they want the message to go a certain way, and they don't want to prioritize, is this in character for this character? Is this in character for that character? Does this make sense as a plot at all? And it's not a good show anymore. I don't know if I'm going to bother with season 4. Not if it's going to keep this up. Trust me, the whole thing with Rain was a confusing mess on its own. But the girl who played Ruby, I'm sure she was doing her best. But I didn't care about her at all. That's not on the actress. I'm sure she did a fine job with the material she was given, but the material wasn't very good. And then friggin' Rain. It's like, oh, well, she's a Kryptonian, but she's human, but the Kryptonian stuff has to be flipped on and off somehow, and then they split apart, and then they say, oh, well, the stronger Rain gets, the weaker Sam gets. But if Sam gets stronger, Rain will get weaker. Nope. No sign that ever happened, because last episode, she comes after Rain, and she stabs her, and then Rain smacks her away, and she's out. That doesn't seem weaker. And they pull this whole, find me an anomaly so Supergirl can travel back in time. Like, where did this anomaly, or whatever they called it, come from? I mean, they just kind of forget things. I mean, sometimes they forget, oh yeah, we got the Legion of Superheroes. Their ship blew up, but we're not going to focus on that. Look, we never see Imra after that. She shows up in the last episode to help out with Brainy, and it's like, there's a ship explosion, and that's it. We don't see her again. Mon-El goes into the future, because he has to, and Wynn goes with him, because that actor is leaving the show. But it's like, what happened to her? I mean, that's to say nothing of the stupid freaking resurgence of the Kara-Mon-El relationship. I mean, I hated that relationship so much. They had no good chemistry with each other. Their relationship was just another bad element in the series. And I was so glad when he was shot into space and gone. Okay, he came back. And actually, I liked Mon-El in season 3. I thought he was a much more entertaining character, but then they had to devolve back into, oh, he still has feelings for Kara, even though he's married to Saturn Girl, and would it have killed you to give the Legionnaires' costumes some freaking color? But on to the final topic here. Cassandra Cain and the end of Tinian's run on Detective Comics. I know that was a few weeks ago by now, but I hadn't really heard anything about the title after 980. I saw some comic panels of Stephanie and Cass, or rather, spoiler alert, and Orphan, seeing versions of themselves from before Flashpoint. The good versions. And Stephanie's like, at first, like, she's crying, and then she's like, ha ha ha, now I know I'm awesome no matter what. And it was all, and I'm guessing that the whole thing everyone's talking about her being out of character during Tinian's run, striking out on her own, was all part of her plan to trick the Ulysses Armstrong, whatever his name is. I did read an article on a website called The Outhouse, but I didn't feel that the article really got in depth on the issue. I did a Google search and I came upon BatmanNews.com and their review of the issue 981, and it was much more detailed. What it says is like, oh, well, we had this resolution between Tim and Batwoman, and apparently Clayface isn't dead. I am so shocked. They killed someone off and he wasn't really dead. Wow. It's like cheap emotional manipulation. This is what Tinian does, whether he's aware of it or not. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I mean, he hits a bunch of emotional points, but so seldom are they actually earned. And that's why I'm so skeptical that the whole Clayface Cassie friendship is anything more than just they met each other and then in the next panel they were best friends, just like with Harper Row. Stephanie Brown, she's off with Tim, and there's, I guess, some hint that they may be trying to figure out the mysteries of this other world where she was Robin and Batgirl at some time. And Cassie goes to live with Leslie Tompkins at her clinic, and she's going to be tutored by Barbara Gordon. And honestly, this is about what I expected from Tinian. It's not much of a resolution, if you ask me. It's a gigantic tease to what these characters were before Flashpoint. And it is not actually giving you these characters from before Flashpoint. They show Cassie and Steph their good versions, and they even have the Brother Eye dude talk about how, oh, you were so much better here. It's like pretty much saying what I've been saying. But then they have Steph defiantly disregard it in the moment and carry on like, oh, well. I mean, we got Cassie being tutored by Barbara, and that's close enough to how it was originally, so same thing, except it's not. See, this is part of why I am so skeptical about Rebirth, because I keep hearing that it's a big apology for all the problems in the New 52 and the post-Flashpoint universe and all the stupid retcons and reinventions they did, but obviously it's not, and not for every character anyway, because if that was what Rebirth was, Cassie would have her good origin back. Stephanie would have her good origin back. They would both get what Tim Drake got in A Lonely Place of Living. Their old origins and histories back. Now, granted, I don't know if Tim Drake is still got that New 52 element to him where he was really an arrogant jerk and somehow, despite being a general child super genius, he was constantly shown up by Harper Row because Harper Row, but he at least got his origin back, but Stephanie and Cass haven't. And I am not going to settle for vague similarities, and I'm certainly not going to settle for any version of these characters that keeps Harper Row in their lives or their origins. I mean, think to what these characters were like before Flashpoint. Cassie, Tim, Batman, Stephanie. What about Harper Row as she was, especially during Eternal, would make them do anything but just laugh her off? She compliments herself. She insists everyone compliment her too. She treats everyone like garbage unless they're pretty much following in step with what she wants, despite her lack of experience and knowledge. And every advantage she's been given has been given by bad writing and convenience. That is not a good character, and it certainly isn't a good person. So I don't see a pre-Flashpoint Cassie Cain wanting her entire life revolving around this character for even a second, much less 26 issues and beyond. People think that she hasn't been seen in Detective Comics, for a while. She's made a couple of appearances, but that's it. She's a minor support role or some nonsense. That doesn't fix anything. I mean, if someone said they're a big fan of your car, and then they took a lead pipe to the windshield, and now it's all cracked and broken, is the windshield going to get fixed because they hide the lead pipe? I mean, they throw it down a sewer drain. Do you think, is that going to just magically make the windshield of your car clear and fixed again? No, it doesn't. So screwing up characters in the name of Harper Row does not get fixed by shuffling Harper Row into mild obscurity. That doesn't fix anything. You can't base these characters in stupid new origins that center on Harper Row for the most part, and then just kind of only show Harper Row occasionally and think, well, as long as we throw in these references to before Flashpoint, it's the exact same thing. It's not. They're not the same characters. The final issues of Tinian's run show that. These are not the same characters. They cannot be the same characters because their lives before and after Flashpoint don't go together. I've mentioned this before. And frankly, I don't see any reason to humor anyone at DC over this. I am sick and tired of them screwing up and thinking, well, you got to deal with it. It's like, no, I'm not gonna deal with this. This is why I haven't bought a Batman title in about 2 years. I'm a big Batman fan. I'm a big fan of Cassie Cain. Brian Hill's on Detective Now. He did respond to a post I made on Twitter about, I made one of my standard comments about how Cassie isn't fixed yet, and he asked me to elaborate, and I tried to do that in as few tweets as I could, and he seemed like a nice enough guy because he could have easily just said screw you and blocked me, but no, he engaged. He wanted to know my perspective, and it's basically what I've been saying, that making these characters' lives about Harper Row was a mistake. Whether it was Tinian's idea, whether it was an idea from one of the other writers, whether it was Dan Didio's mandate, one of the editors got real drunk and threatened to set someone on fire if it didn't happen. I don't know. And other than specificity's sake, I really don't care. But it was a mistake nevertheless. And I'm not going to humor the mistake. I did that enough with the New 52. I'm like, the entire reboot was a bad idea. The reinventions were a bad idea. Everything was poorly handled. But because of, I like Batman, and there's a little bit of the collector's mentality involved that makes it really hard for you to just quit cold turkey on this stuff. I kept buying Batman. I kept buying Detective. I kept buying Batman and Robin. Even after I stopped buying a bunch of other titles. It's like I maintained the Bat titles at the very least. But, you know what? Just like with a certain other unrelated story, I learned that it wasn't worth it. I'm not getting the Cassie Cain I want, and, it's not worth it. So far, it seems that 981, the last issue of Detective Comics Tinian wrote, was a lot like the last issue of Batman Eternal and Batman Robin Eternal. There was, even according to the Batman News article that I read, there's some stuff that wasn't quite explained, some stuff left in the air, and not everything really being satisfactory. And maybe he's as big a fan of these characters as he claims, but that's not enough for me. I'm sorry. His output has not matched his alleged affection, and I'm just waiting for someone at DC to wise up, retcon Cassie and Steph and Tim and all these other characters back to pre-Flashpoint, where Harper Row is not part of their lives, and go from there. If you want Barbara Gordon to stay Batgirl, fine. There's nothing wrong with her being Batgirl after Cassie and Steph were Batgirl. There's nothing preventing it. I could freaking write that kind of story. I could write a story that keeps Barbara as Batgirl and respects the fact that there were other Batgirls besides her. It's not that hard, except for people at DC, either because of the writer's capabilities or insane nonsense sewer swill mandates from higher up. Maybe one day I'll get to prove it to you, but probably not anytime soon, especially if DC ever watches this video. Thanks for watching. If you made it all the way through, congratulations. If you liked it, if you had something to add, if you disagree with me, or if you do agree with me, feel free to comment below. Just be civil, be respectful, and vaya con Dios.